recap, yesterday we have seen about your definitions. So we learned that definitions is going to be called as a block of code where user can able to write business logic inside that, and whenever it is required, user can able to call the definition. Okay, so the syntax of your definition is going to look like definition def space the method name parenthesis and colon. The rule that I want to remember here is indentation. Indentation is mandatory for everyone. Indentation is mandatory for the everyone to have in a method. Okay. So now, actually, we have seen like how can we pass the data into a method also, into the definition also, right? So that we have been discussed about your parameterization. So the values accepted by the method is going to be called as parameters, right? The value that we are going to send to the method is going to be called as your arguments, right? So we have seen how to send parameters, how to write the parameters, and how to send the arguments, correct? So this is the discussion we made yesterday. Now today we'll see about what are the rules I need to remember when I create a definition. Okay, so the first rule that I want to bring here is the name of the method should match with the business process that you are working on, right? For suppose I am working on registration process. Okay, I'm working on registration process. So my definition name should look like definition, right? Register user. Okay, so my definition should look like this. Okay, you have to write logic inside it. So don't use like method name as A, method name as B, method name as something useless. Okay, always try to map your behavior. Okay, definitions are also going to be called as behaviors. Methods is also going to be called as behaviors. So the logic that whatever you're going to write inside a block, right? So it should be relevant to your business process behavior. Okay, I want to reset my password. Write the method name as reset password. I want to write a logic for forget password. Write a method name as forget password. I need to connect with my database. Have the method name as connect to database. So try to map the name which is going to be relevant to your business behavior. Okay. Second rule that I want to remember is number of parameters should match with number of arguments, right? Number of parameters should match with number of arguments. Okay, so what do you mean by that, right? So let's see that number of parameters should match with number of arguments. We'll see that now. So here I'm going to create a new Python file called as new Python file. I'm going to give it as params versus arguments. So here I have a definition called as add, and I have numbers as a comma b. Now I'm going to use my print statement as print of a plus b here. Fine, that is truly absolute fine. Now what I want to do here is I want to call this. So if I try to use 10 comma 20 or some other number here, right? So the number of parameters here is 2. But what are we doing here? We are sending 3 arguments. Now run this. Here what happened here is positional arguments takes 2, but you are giving 3. Takes 2, but you are going to give it as 3. Okay. So now number of parameters must be equal to number of arguments. That is the first rule that you have to keep in your mind. Should I need to remind the data type of the value that I am sending? Really, yes, guys. We have to remember it. We have to remember it. Really, yes. Why? So because in Python, we cannot concat string with integer. String with integer. So for suppose, right, I'm going to send as A as B, A comma B. Now what happened here is I'm going to send 10 comma 30 like this. Now see what happened. What happened here? Unsupported operand types yes for plus, right? Intent string. Intent string. Right? So you have to take a look and see that whether you're sending the right data or not. So we cannot able to use your concatenate operator plus between string and integer. Okay. So we cannot use concat operator plus in between string and integer. Okay. So to concat string with integer, convert either string to integer or vice versa. Do either wise. Okay. So now my question is how to convert string to integer. How to convert my string to integer. Okay. So use the class constructor. Use the class constructor called as int. Right? And pass your string value here. And pass your string value here. Okay. So this syntax will give the number. Will give the number which is going to be an integer. So now in this case, right, I have a doubt that I'm going to get a number here, but a string here. So that what I'll do here is whatever it may comes here, right? Only if I'm going to send an integer as string also, right? I'm going to convert it explicitly by using my int constructor. So now run this. See, I'm going to get as 40. Now people are too smart. They'll test with their different types here. This kind of things, ABCD. ABCD is not a number inside. So for each and every key that is available on your keyboard will be having a ASCII value, guys. Will be having your ASCII value. Okay. So how this conversion is going to happen, I'm teaching you that. Please try to understand it. So for every key, right, on the keyboard will be having some ASCII value. Capital A to capital Z, right? So for capital A, we have the value as 65. And for Z, right, 65 plus 25, it is going to be 90. Okay. So similarly, from small a to small z, 0 to 9, there will be some ASCII values available. So this conversion, how it is going to be happen, right? So before converting, it will check whether these values that have been given is falling in between the ASCII values of numbers or not. Okay. If it is falling in between the number values, right, then only it will go and take the conversion. Else it will throw an exception. So now see here. This is wrong. That's what invalid literal for int. You cannot able to, because this is not going to be fall in the range of 0 to 9 because we have numbers from 0 to 9 only. So it will check whether the given values is falling in between 0 to 9 or not. As it is not falling in between 0 to 9, right? So it cannot able to convert into integer. Okay. So the lesson I want to learn from here is, right, to convert anything to string integer value, right? I have to use my int. I have to use my int. But right, so the value that I'm going to pass, it should be in integral numbers, numerical numbers, right? That should be either in your string format or some other format. It should be numerical values only, which is not in an integer format. To convert them into your integer format, we are going to use your int as a constructor here. Got it? If you want to convert anything into the string, if we want to convert anything into the string into string format, right? Use the string class constructor as str. One second. Okay, so the topic that we discussed here is what are the types of arguments we have. What are the types of arguments we have? So there are two types of arguments we have. One is going to be called as positional arguments. Second thing is going to be called as keyword arguments. Okay, so in this example, what we did here is we have created a method called as calculate rate, and we pass two parameters. So first one is going to be called as positional argument. Second one is going to be called as keyword arguments. Okay, so what is meant by keyword argument? So if I want to make something to be constant every time in my method, right, the input value should be always constant every time. So we'll be calling that one as a keyword argument. So in my example here, the question that we asked here is, in my method, I want to make one parameter to be constant always, right? Can I achieve this in Python? Yes, that is going to be achieved using what? Using your keyword arguments. So to implement your keyword arguments, right, we'll be going to use this kind of syntax. So for example, that we take here is, I want to calculate the rate for a user given amount, right? So if the user is not going to give any amount, right, by default, I want to take some default value, which is going to be called as 0.5 in my example. So what are the number that the user is going to be sent here, right? That will be get multiplied with my 0.5. Why? Because user is not sending the number. So say like your GST and GST. Okay, so where you want to do your state wise as well as central wise. So if the user is not going to send any number, right, but there will be a flat amount available where you want to apply by default. So the default amount will be taken care. That is the option for the user. Either I can able to send my own value, or I want to take my default value. So the default value I'm going to take it as 0.5 here. So if you're not going to send here, the amount that I'm going to send will be get calculated with the default amount called as 0.5. No, I want to send my own number. Then what I'll do? I'll be sending like 1.05 or 1.02. So now run this. Now see, I'll be getting the user given value here. Okay, so this tax is going to be called as keyword argument. This A is going to be called as your positional arguments. Now, I don't know how many positional arguments that I need to send. Okay, first time I may send 2 arguments. Second time I may send 5 arguments. Will Python support such behavior?
Yes.
Will Python support such behavior? So how?
So just we need to pass star in front of positional.
Wait. You know, I think you know about that. Like, wait. I'll tell you that. So, for positional arguments, when you don't know anything, for positional arguments when we don't know how many arguments that we need to send, right? That we need to say, I don't know how many arguments that we need to send. Then simply keep star args in the place of positional arguments. Okay, so star args indicates right, positional arguments, right? So do I need to keep the keyword args every time? Answer is no. It can be any, guys. It can be anything. So you can able to keep your name or my name, some other name, no problem there. You can able to keep any other thing. Okay. So let's see that how we can able to achieve this. Okay. So now let me modify this method a little bit. Okay, or I'll write a new method. So definition check. Okay. So now I'm going to keep it as star args here. Okay. Now I'm going to make still my tax amount equal to 0.5. I still stick to this one. Now just use your print of args. Okay. Now see here. Now let me use my print of my tax amount also. Let me use my tax. Okay. Now let me use my check of 45, 55, 85, 79. Right. Now see, the entire args is going to be take whatever the user send value is available, right? So the entire thing is going to be taken care in your args. Okay. And the tax value that whatever the user sender, that will be always nominal here. Okay. So whatever the amount I'm going to send here, I want to do the summation of each and every number here. I want to do the summation of each and every number. Then what I want to do here is I want to sum up. Then I want to multiply with my tax amount. Okay. So I don't know how many numbers I'm going to send. It's going to be called as my list of orders. On the total orders, right, the amount should be calculated. Then I want to apply my tax rate. Right. So I don't know. I cannot able to make the multiple methods should be written for that. For the first argument I need to send, for two arguments I want to send, like that. So right. So we are going to replace with your star args. So instead of this, I can able to write my name also as Rehan here. So now just keep it as Rehan here, no matter. See, we are getting the same value. So just for as a Python given good practices, we are going to use your args here. Okay. So now by default, the type of this args is going to be called as tuple, guys. Okay. So the type of args is called as tuple. Okay. In Python, tuple is one of the collection object. Right? It is going to be one of the collection object. It is fixed in size. We cannot able to manipulate the values available on the tuple. Okay, it will be always fixed in size. So we need to understand more and more on your tuples. When it comes to the collection object, I'll be teaching you that. So, but as we got a scenario, I'm teaching you that about here. Okay. So now the values whatever I'm going to send, this is going to be occupied in my args, and the type of that args is going to be always tuple. So now how can I add each and every number that is given by the tuple here? How can I add it? So initially I don't know what is my sum. I'm going to make my sum as 0. I don't know what is my sum. I'm going to make it as 0. Now for number num in my args. So for each and every number available in my args, okay, I'm going to get it. Sum is equal to sum equal to sum plus number. So now what happened here? I'm going to pick each and every number. Where? From my args. I'm going to pick each and every number, and then I'm going to store, I'm going to submit, and I'm going to store back into my sum variable. So I'll explain what is happening exactly here. So first, initially what will happen here is, I make my sum equal to 0. Now I got a element as, I got a number, or I got a element as 5. Assume that I got a number as 5. Now what I'm going to do here is sum equal to sum plus element. What is the element? Element is going to have as what? 5. Okay. Now see what is happening here exactly, right? So first the compiler is going to run this right hand side logic. So what is my right hand side logic? Sum plus element. So the value of sum is how much? 0. So 0 plus 5, how much? 5. So now again that 5 is going to be inserted back into my sum. Now 0 will be removed and I will be having the value as 5. And again I got the element as 10, guys. Now what will happen? So already I have the value as 5 in my sum, and I have the element as 10 here. So 10 plus 5, how much? 15. And again I'm going to set back my value is 15. Now again I got the value as 20 here for my element. Now what happened here? Sum plus element. Again, what is the value of sum? 15. 15 plus 20. What happened? The value is going to be by 35. Again I'm going to set back my 35. So previous value plus current value. So here also I'm going to do that. So initially I have my sum equal to 0. So as I have my sum equal to 0, first time, right, I make it as 0. Then what happened? Here I already have my 0. So 0 plus the number. So what is the first number? 45. 0 plus 45. Okay. Now what happened here? It will be adding my 0 plus 45, and in my memory the 45 will be get stored. I'm going to store back into my what? Into my sum only. And again, right? So let me remove this. And now what happened here? Again I have 55 here. So what is the already value available there? 45. 45 plus my 55. So what is the value? 45 plus 55? 100, right? So now I'll be getting the value as 100. So like this, right? Every number will get added up with the old value that is available there. Okay. So this is going to be the logic that I wrote here. Okay. So now let us see how exactly that loop is getting running out here. Okay. So don't worry about the loops. We have a separate session available on the loops tomorrow. We'll be seeing there. But for now, just try to understand how that is happening there. So I'll be teaching you about this debugging also tomorrow session, right? For now, to make you to understand how exactly the values are running out, I'm going to show you a step by step. So we came to your definition here, and now I don't know what is the value of the sum initially, so I make it as 0. Okay. Now, first what happened, right? In these arguments, see here we have the list of elements available, right? In these arguments, right? This tuple, that's what I told you, tuple, right? I'm going to pick the first number. See, the number is going to become as 45. So already sum equal to 0, and I have the number as 45. So 0 plus 45, that will be keep in the memory and store back into your value here. See, the sum is getted as 45. Now again the number is going to be 55. So already 55 is there, and I got already 45 is there, and I got 55 now. So 45 plus 55 is going to be 100. So like this it will be keep running. Okay. So it will be run till all the elements that have been captured in my capture in my arguments. Okay. Now once my loop is completed, then what I'm going to do here is print sum into 0.5. Now see, my logic will run and I'm going to get the output like this. Got it? So similarly, can I able to send my keyword arguments? The answer is yes. We can send as many as, but in the method we need to represent the keyword arguments as star args. So star args represent what? Keyword arguments. Star what is going to represent as keyword arguments. Just keep it in mind. So in interview, this is going to be a definite question. They'll be asking about, one second. In interview, they'll be asking about difference between star args and the star args. Definitely this is going to be one of the questions in the methods. If I'm going to be a panelist member, then my question is going to be on this only. We also seen multiple students have been asked this question in the point of interview. So the next question that I have in my mind is, I want to execute a method or definition, right? So that output of that method should be used inside of another method. Right? So is that possible? Is that possible to achieve? The answer is yes. So the method should return a value. Okay, so should return a value. So if we want to consume the output of a method and write a method, so what you want to do? We need to return a value. By using a keyword called return. Use a keyword called return and try to return the value, guys, from that particular method, such that your value can be given. Okay, so when the method is returning a value, user can store or user can assign the method directly to a variable. User can able to allocate this method directly to a variable, because the output of that method is going to be stored inside this variable. So for now, let me take the same example that we wrote. Okay, so now what I want to do here is, I want to send back the total tax amount calculated on the rate. Okay, so that I need to send my sum, return equal to sum. So now what happened here? The logic, right, or the output, where I'm storing all my output. I'm going to store all my output inside a variable called sum. Now I need to send back this total calculated amount. Okay, then I want to see if there is any discounts are available or whatever it may be. I need to do some other thing. So this sum value I need to send back to the user. So to send back the output from the method, right, I should use the keyword called return. So now what happened, right? total taxable amount equal to this one. Okay, now because I'm not printing anything, now see here, print of total taxable amount. Now run this. So I'll be getting the total amount here. So sum star tax. I'll be using this. Now see, I'll be getting this amount. This is fine. Okay. So how can I capture this one? I've been captured by using a keyword called return. So when I have a return for my method, I can able to assign this particular method to a variable such that the output of this method can be stored inside this variable called taxable amount variable. Now wherever I want, I can able to use this one. Wherever I want to use this, I can able to use this one. Okay, I can able to pass this particular method value to any one of the method. So that's fine. So now, Pratap, I forgot to add a return method, man. I forgot to add a return method. Now will it throw any exception? No, it will not throw any exception, but it will throw you a value called none. If a method is not returning any output, if a method is not returning any output, then the output is going to be written as none. Then the output is going to be written as none. Keep it in mind. Why I am getting a none as an output means that particular method, that whatever you have been started using, right? That method is not returning any value. So if the method is returning some value from the right, then you are going to get the output that have been given in the method, else it is going to return you as none. Okay, none is not equal to null, guys. Again, now check this. I wrote a one more print statement below this. Print of hello. So will this execute now? Will this execute and show me the output? In interview, this kind of questions will be asked, guys. Definitely in interview, this kind of questions will be asked. So they'll ask you, what is the output of this code? They'll give the small snippet of the code and they'll be definitely asking you, what is the output of this code? Now see what I'm going to get, only 132.2, but I won't get any error. Reason is, in other programming languages like Java and all, right, if you try to write any code after your return statement, it will throw an exception. But in Python, it won't throw any exception, right? So once it reaches the return statement, it will think that this is going to be called as end of statement, end of the method. Wherever it found a return keyword, right, then it will treat it as end of method. So as it is going to be end of method, right, the last print statement will never get executed. The last print statement will never get executed. So it is bad practice to write any statement after your return keyword. So I have one more question. I have one more question in my mind is, I want to access a variable that is available inside a method. Inside a method. Okay, I want to access a variable that is available inside a method. Access a variable out. Okay, yeah, take it like this. I want to access a variable that is available inside a method. Okay, is that possible? Is that possible? Ideally, no, but there is a way of doing it. Okay, so the reason why we cannot access variables which are created inside a method, the reason is, right, so when we create any variable inside a method, the life scope, the lifetime of the variable will be within the method, okay. So this type of representation is called as local variables. Okay, so local variables, they are permitted to use only within the method. Once I created the method variable, right, I can't able to use outside of a method. Okay, so local variables cannot be used outside a method. If we want to make use of any local variable outside the method, then we need to declare it as global by using a keyword called global. So just use your global keyword and create your variable and then assign your value to it. Okay, so then we can able to make use of your global variables wherever you want. For example, I'm not going to return any value from here, guys. I'm not going to return any value from here. Here also, right, I'm going to get none, right? So that I'm going to remove this. Now what I'll do, right, I'll try to access this sum here. Sum plus 45. Now see here, right, I cannot able to access this sum. Okay, I cannot able to access this sum. Now run this. Guys, 1 second, don't use built-in functions. Sum underscore, let me use my sum underscore. I cannot able to use my built-in functions. That is wrong, my bad, I forgot to set that. You cannot able to use your built-in functions. Okay, so now what happened here? While designing itself, it is telling me that unresolved sum underscore. It means that it cannot able to identify what is the sum, where it is coming from. I don't know. Okay, now what I want to do here is, right, so that is what this sum is going to be called as a local variable. The lifetime of this sum is going to be only within this method. We cannot able to access it outside. So if I want to make it to be accessed outside, right, then what I want to do here is I want to make global sum. Now see, I can able to access outside of a method also. See now, I got it as 309. Got it? Clear? So to convert your local variable to the global variable, we have to use a keyword called global beside your local variable, such that, right, we can able to use anywhere. If you are not going to use your global beside your local variable name, right, then we cannot able to access it.